So folks, since I've got these videos up, these are the kind of basically the set that we watched with the high pressure pump. I do want to go back and maybe take a look at the eluent. You know, we recently talked about the mobile phases and we went through the onslaught of anion mobile phases, and I showed you the chart that the cation mobile phases can be a little bit different. You choose the different mobile phases depending on what metal or cation or anion that you want to analyze. But there's a section of videos that they're showing you here about the mobile phase jugs, and I just don't want to bypass any of this information. So what they're showing you here is basically the proper method of making a mobile phase. And this video is going to drive me crazy because what you're seeing coming out of the faucet here is DI water. And that DI water they're using as a rinse. So yes, you should be rinsing your mobile phase jugs with deionized water or ultra pure water if you have that in the laboratory. So you just saw them rinse it once. Typically, we do everything 3 times. So there is your second rinse with water from the jug. And then we're putting a third rinse inside of that jug. And we're just prepping it for the mobile phase that's getting ready to go in there. Here's the issue that I have with the video. This mobile phase has been prepared, already ready to go. And they have it in this plastic graduated cylinder marked at 2,000 mils. You should be preparing eluents in volumetric flask, not plastic graduated cylinders. So I hope that they made it in a volumetric flask, and I hope that they poured it into a graduated cylinder just for video purposes, but you're seeing them pour that mobile phase into the mobile phase jugs here in this step, and then eventually it's going to be capped and loaded onto the machine. So never use graduated cylinders to make your mobile phases. These lead to wrong concentrations, and those concentrations you want typically the same every single time that you do them. Okay. Something else that goes on top of the bottles for the mobile phases here are basically going to be the CO2 absorbers. The CO2 absorber was also required for our TOC instrument. You probably saw that absorber, or at least a bottle of what we would call soda lime, on the inside of a bottle that's on the top of the TOC instrument. These things have to be changed out regularly. The purpose of the CO2 absorber is to prevent CO2 from getting inside of the mobile phase. So if you do have a mobile phase that you've got to be really particular with, you're going to make sure that the CO2 absorber is always fresh. That typically has an indicator with it. So they're dumping out the old one. Notice the cotton at the bottom of the holder. They're going to pour fresh CO2 on the inside of it, this absorber, the CO2 absorber. They're going to put the same piece of cotton back onto the top, and then the lid goes on top of that. Finally, that whole contraption that you're seeing in the screen is going to be screwed on top or placed on top of the mobile phase jug where the cap is located. So this, they tell you to kind of do every 3 months. If you have an indicator, soda lime absorber or soda lime indicator, that will turn color. Maybe it will go blue, maybe it will go pink. You can use those, and that will kind of give you a better idea of when you need to replace them. But every 3 to 6 months is kind of what they tell you to do. Finally, connecting the eluent bottle. What you're seeing here is the cap that's on top of the bottle that holds your mobile phase. This piece here that's clamped on with this red clip, this is that CO2 absorber that you just saw in the previous video. So that's where that gets positioned. And this is the mobile phase tube that goes basically down into the jug that will begin to suck up that mobile phase. So what you're going to see in this video is them kind of cramming that piece of tubing down into the cap. There's a seal here at the bottom, and we're going to screw that piece in to get it a complete seal as we can. Remember, we don't want CO2 involved, so we want to keep it closed as much as possible. At the end of this mobile phase line, we don't really have anything on our instrument. However, you can put inline filters onto the mobile phase line, and that's what you're seeing here. So this very first piece that they just slid onto this piece of tubing is a weight. And that weight's purpose, of course, is to weight down the line, and kind of like you're going fishing, right? It's to weight the line down so it can kind of sink to the bottom of the mobile phase jug. Now you're going to see them basically put on an adapter or a clip, and then another one goes on top of that one to kind of sandwich and lock it down into place. And you're going to see them kind of tighten that up with the two tools that come along with your instrument here. They're basically like plastic little wrenches. So they tighten that up. That locks it down basically onto the tubing so it doesn't slide back and forth from this point. And then there is a filter that basically gets screwed on to that end joint. And that filter's purpose, of course, is to filter your mobile phase as it's needed. That helps prevent some of the junk and the trash that might escape and get inside of your machine. And you don't really have to worry about that slime buildup if it does occur. So you want to kind of push that all the way down to the bottom. And there you go. That's what a traditional mobile phase jug would look like. Those filters typically are replaced every 6 months or when they go yellow. So that really depends on how much you use that particular kind of filter. And here you're seeing a unscrewing off of an old one, trash it, put a new one back on, and that's really all there is to it if you do need to replace that consumable. All right, so there's a little bit about the mobile phase jug, the mobile phase cap, a little bit about the CO2 absorber that we did talk about. I just didn't show you a picture of it, and now you know how to take them off, replace them, and put them back on. And a little bit about the filters that go on the inside, right? It just helps you do your job. It helps everything to stay clean. And we had that set up. And honestly, we're just been a little bit lazy about putting them on. So we do have everything that's needed to be put there, and we've just not done it. So maybe when you get to use it, or maybe in the upcoming years, that will not be the story. But right now, we just have the tubing pointed into the mobile phase jug, and away it goes. All right? Okay, so that's a little bit about the eluent now, how to prepare an eluent, how to prepare the bottle for the eluent, how to go through and talk about the different pieces and parts of the mobile phase line, where it goes to as far as the pump, and what happens in the pump itself, how to take that apart, how to clean it, how to change the valves, how to change the O-rings that are on the inside, and then put it all back together and get ready for your next injection.